Well, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
So let's begin our journey into your good work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was doing all kinds of things to all of us, changing the world, changing all of us. How did you make it through the pandemic of 2020, and how has it affected you now in 2025?
When it comes to the pandemic, of course, it was not a great situation for many people. But I have to say, like with anything that the world throws at you, there's always a choice. Are you going to leverage this or are you going to fall into it and allow yourself to be overwhelmed and overcome by it? And I have to say, I had just made some really big decisions. I quit my consulting and decided to go full-fledged as of January 2020 into the charity that I run now, which was, that emotional decision to fill my cup and do things with purpose. And by March, everything we had planned for that year had to be completely revised. Now, what was so great about COVID, not just for the business, it gave me space to really take an objective view of it as a charity model. Is what we're doing working and having the greatest impact? So it was great for reflection from a business standpoint. But I think where the most leverage could come in for me and for anyone during this pandemic, if you're really big on personal development, so let's take, for example, a really simple example, whether you're an alcoholic or not, you've decided that you're going to stop drinking. But when you go and hang out with your friends, that's kind of what you do. And so it's easy to fall back into that old persona because your environment is not exactly supporting that transition. And so your choices is either to say, I don't want to hang out with my friends anymore, or to kind of have to and live in your own little cocoon, if you will, of no, I'm going to really reinforce who I want to be, and until I'm ready, like I don't want to expose myself to these temptations. Well, that's, we use the idea of drinking, but it could be that you want to become a calmer person. It could be that you want to become a kinder person. It could be that you're tired of feeling this internal struggle or this victim mentality. You want to feel more empowered. You want to show up differently to your career or your friend groups or the impact you're having on the world. And when you're constantly surrounded by reminders of who you were, it's much more difficult.
Yeah.
I had the greatest amount of personal development during COVID because nobody was judging me for not hanging out with them. Nobody was judging me, whether they were or not, whether people do or not. We feel this internal pressure to show up every day. And oh, I don't want to be this, person known for being a hobbit. It's like all of a sudden we all had permission to really look at ourselves and go, do I want to show up differently at the end of this, or do I want to be the same person?
Yeah.
And I decided to be a different person, to really shift my identity. And it was really interesting because who I was before the pandemic was this highly sarcastic, a little bit of dark humor. Sarcasm, while it seems edgy, it's also mean a lot of the times, right? It's either self-deprecating or you're poking at somebody else. And I really wanted to change that. And it became funny because when the pandemic ended and I could start hanging out with people again, I didn't know what my reactive nature would be.
Yeah.
Would somebody say something and then I'd fall into an old habit and be like, oh, here's my sarcastic comment? Or was this, no, I really have changed. And like what comes out of my mouth, which could be nothing,
Yeah.
or it could be something kinder and more encouraging. Like I didn't know. I was actually really insecure about my sense of humor and I didn't know who I was. And more importantly, how I thought people would receive me.
Hmm.
So that's how I spent the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of just learning to love and enjoy my own company, and a lot of decision making on who do I want to be when I show up in the world.
So let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, kids always get the truth out of us. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? What's your answer?
It's funny because that's actually what I do for a living is
Yeah.
face 12-year-olds asking really candid questions. So I run a charity and we focus on putting kids very young at age, between 7 to 13, into real world situations and teach them all the things that you and I wish we learned as kids. We
Wow.
have kids as young as 7 learning to start and launch businesses in malls, deliver kid talks, which are like TED Talks,
Yeah.
digital literacy programs where they're learning how to create an online course teaching people the things that they love and finding the value in their uniqueness and being able to share that with the world. And so on the surface, that all sounds super fantastic. Kids doing really cool things that they're excited about, preparing them for the world. But what it's actually doing is flexing all of those human essential soft skills that are so key today, not just professionally in your career or as an entrepreneur or doing even a role like what you're doing right now, communication, resiliency, decision making, communication, empathy, leadership, self-awareness. Those are all things you can't learn in a textbook. You have to learn them in a real world, high stakes, perceived situation. And through that, those are also the skills that are foundational to the difference between someone who faces something difficult like COVID or something difficult like the loss of someone or being terminated from their job or being bullied on social media or something. Those are the foundations for coping with either overcoming or not even falling into the barrels of mental health difficulties. And so we're really looking at prevention over intervention of mental health in youth because right now, in North America, mental health in youth under 25 is the highest out of any other age group. It's as high
Yeah.
as 1 in 3. So it's
Yeah.
become a very serious matter. And there's not enough resources to go around to fix them all, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to be?
So much different time when I was young. And, that's really interesting. That's where a lot of my story comes in. So I'm going to go back just a little bit earlier than 12, actually. And at the time, there was only one powerful woman on TV in my world, and that was Murphy Brown. She was a raging alcoholic. She was a chain smoker and not kind to her staff, but she was a powerhouse in a power suit with shoulder pads, and I aspired to be powerful like her. And at a young age, for whatever reason, like I loved money, so not for whatever reason. We all know why we love money as
Yeah.
kids. But myself and my stepbrother, this was during the latchkey kid era as well, which means kids were kind of self-sufficient, taking care of themselves, entering and leaving their home, making their own meals at a very young age. And he and I decided we were going to start going to flea markets on the bus and selling stuff. So if it wasn't nailed down in our place, it was getting sold
Yeah.
to the detriment of my mother's Beatles and Elvis record collections.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but we were making money, and it was that point where I saw someone like Murphy Brown, and I was like, "There's a powerhouse of a woman. She's just so confident in what her value is to the world, even though she's got her demons." And here I was in a situation able to demonstrate to myself I can talk to strangers. I can make money. If I need to get away from kind of the toxic situation that I was living in, I can hop on a bus. I know how to read a bus schedule. I'll
Yeah.
be okay no matter what. And that's where the first kind of foundations of my identity and who I was started to develop.
So take me back earlier on in your childhood. What were the foundational elements that made you want to be Murphy Brown, that made you want to be a success, that eventually led to you having a nonprofit? How did all of this happen?
So okay, so my upbringing, not too crazy and unique. My parents got divorced at four when I was 4 years old, and it was not a happy divorce. But then they both found other partners, and they were not healthy people that were then brought into my world. Very toxic, one side more abusive than the other. But ultimately, I was this child, and I don't know what it was within me, but observing my parents, to be honest, I felt like they didn't have much self-worth. They didn't have much belief in themselves, which was why they were in these terrible relationships. And the terribleness, the toxicity was trickling down to me. And I just felt like this is not okay. I felt like I didn't have any power, which you don't as a child. You have to live where you have to live. You have to go where people drive you to. You can't just say this is terrible. Why are you doing this, right? Your mom and dad isn't going to listen to you as a 4 year old. And there was just something in me that just said, I will never be a person in this kind of relationship. And I will be that person that can take care of myself and be self-sufficient and not be forced into these situations where I feel like I have no options.
So who's been that hero? Who's been that inspirational force for you?
It keeps changing, because Murphy Brown was kind of that thing of showing me what something or who I could be. Um, High school, I'd say any role model that I had was not a healthy one because I became very destructive. I kind of went the opposite direction where I was like, my parents are all making decisions on my behalf and they're terrible decisions. I am going to start making my own decisions. They just happen to be really bad decisions. Like we're talking selling drugs, doing drugs, getting tattoos at 14 years old, which I still have, one left till today. It was about not showing up at school, getting into fights, getting suspended, getting expelled, going to bad kids' schools, not going to graduate on time, all these things, getting kicked out of my house, all these things were happening. And so any role model I had, I was definitely a lost kid, and that was not a great situation. But it was interesting because so much of what I talk about today, which is about how to deliberately create your own identity instead of operating on default, which is what most of us are. But that default identity was created through coping and
Yeah.
trauma and survival instincts, right? And so it's not really serving you to get ahead, it's serving you to keep you where you are, which is in this feeling of safety, right?
Yeah.
And there was going through all of this kind of teenage drama, if you will, and a lot of mental health challenges. I remember I was sitting on the stairs overhearing a conversation between my boyfriend at the time and his mom. And I think I really heard this conversation because it wasn't being said at me, so I didn't have to be defensive. And overhearing her talk to her son, just saying, like, you two aren't good for each other. Like, where do you think you're both headed on this path? I really heard that. And at the time, I didn't realize it was, this remnant of these flea markets I used to have and the identity I'd built at this young age, which is, Leah, you can take over the world. You can literally do anything. You have the power to go anywhere, to talk to anybody, to make any money you want, and to make your own choices that are healthy for you and taking you in the direction of what you want in life. All I know is that I felt like such an imposter. I felt really angry at myself.
Yeah.
And I knew it was up. I was the only one that could make a decision otherwise. And so, poor guy, the moment he came upstairs from that conversation, I broke up with him. I went back home, started living at home, went back to a regular kids' school, took extra courses during lunch hour to catch up on my credits and graduate on time. I got two jobs. I got my driver's license right away and bought a car. It was just like a complete 180 in what felt like overnight. Got rid of all of my friends. And that was because of that early forging of that identity where I had proven to myself that I could be these things.
Yeah.
You can't have a parent or a teacher or a coach. We all have those people that help us maybe see ourselves in a certain way, but ultimately it's our choice. If somebody says you're beautiful, you're smart, and you don't believe it, you're just like, "Ugh, go away." Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good, right? It almost feels like fakery, and you start to mistrust that person. So that's why so much of what I do is about putting kids in situations where when they launch their businesses, we don't let parents near their table.
Yeah.
We make those kids stand on their own 2 feet. And the growth they have in just that one market, that one launch is so significant that they're demonstrating to themselves what they had no idea they were capable of. Because so often we don't allow kids to make their own decisions. We give them a choice of apple or orange juice and everything else we like to decide for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the full circle of how I've
Yeah.
come to where I am today. But my direct impact of, role models was not healthy for a long time. And now professionally, role model wise, there's so many people to emulate. And that's one of the techniques that I use for myself and that I share with others is, think of situations you've been in where you kind of kick yourself and you go, oh, that was not right. That did not serve me. And then imagine someone else. It could be a faceless person. It could be a celebrity. It could be someone you know.
Yeah.
And just really imagine, like, how would they show up?
Yeah.
What would you admire in somebody if they
Yeah.
did that would actually advance them towards their goal, right?
Sure.
And then write that down and practice emulating that, imagining yourself there. And so when it comes to role models these days, they don't have to be, an Oprah or a president or something like that that you would write on a university college application, right?
Yeah.
It's really about in this moment how can I admire myself?
Yeah.
And really, the goal, I think, through COVID was um, I became someone I admire. And every time I encounter a situation that I'm just so proud of, I look at it objectively and I go, man, how cool is that? For the first time in my life, I really admire myself. I'm my own mentor while still feeding off of other people's experiences to keep growing myself.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is the motivator every day to wake up to do this work? Not only to do this work, but to take care of your own soul? What's that collective energy for you every day?
Such an interesting question. It's throughout my career, so my background's actually franchising. straight out of college, worked with 1-800 Got Junk, which if you're in North America, you're familiar with that brand, and selling franchises all over the place. And becoming a consultant in that industry, I then worked in other industries, everything from health and wellness and handyman and painting and, just all these different industries. I started my own businesses, manufacturing and, in interior design products and stuff like that. I've really been exposed to a lot, and they're all exciting and fun in the beginning because it's all new and there's the strategy and the hustle. But there'd be that moment that I sit with myself and I could feel almost the self-sabotage starting to come in because I'd just be like, what's the point of this? Like, is this really all that great for the world? Is this really making an impact? Now, it's not to say that all those industries are not making an impact. They are, but it wasn't resonating with me. Like, I felt there was something bigger that I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And it became just by pure accident. It started off as truly just an entrepreneur program for kids, as a part-time hobby between myself and the other co-founder. And all of a sudden, I still didn't understand why, but I really started to connect to this. I started to really relate to what these kids were experiencing. And the number one thing that people say to us is, "I wish they had this when I was a kid." And my answer is, that's exactly why I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened. Kids have been in the program for a number of years, so now they've grown up and they're reflecting on their experiences. And all of a sudden I started to peel back the onion. And to be honest, that whole reflection of the flea markets and building my identity and that moment on the stairwell, that only just came back to me in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why this hits and resonates so much. I really believe that if we can start helping kids create these foundational building blocks of deciding who they want to be at an early age instead of trying to figure that out later once the world's told you who you should be, 10 different parts of the world, they're telling you 10 different things that you should be in the world.
Yeah.
Like, how empowering and incredibly leveraging is that?
Yeah.
And so that's my driver. It's like I don't even have control over it. I feel very fortunate. It took me, 40 years to figure it
Yeah.
out, but I found the thing that I can't. I mean, working in a charity, you're not getting rich, right? This is
Yeah.
not for the money. This is not for the glory. It's often very thankless because you're doing so much in the background with such limited resources, and such limited capacity. But it's like I can't not do it, and it's
Yeah.
because of my own experiences. It's unwavering, you know.
Sure. So, of everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved to at this point, what are you the proudest of?
Gosh, what a great big question. I mean, to, I feel like this would have really been different even just a few years ago
Yeah.
because with Biz Kids, we really, during the pandemic, reorganized how we do what we do. And it allowed us to grow our reach and increase our accessibility by like 90%.
Yeah.
And we grew by 15x in 15 months all across the nation. It was so powerful to see that we could do this at scale and that we could reach the masses and the youth that are the most vulnerable to falling victim to mental health challenges and a lack of exposure to real world experience. So that was, but through this understanding of myself and having more and more reflective moments of just actually being really proud of myself, like the majority of my life, I've definitely felt imposter syndrome. If you asked anybody, they'd be like, "Leah's super good. She's good. Look at her. She's successful. She speaks well. She can share her story. Oh, she's very successful." But man, on the inside, I was not for a lot of my years. I was really struggling with loving myself, and I did not realize just how low my self-worth was.
Yeah.
And so now that being so robust, feeling so empowered and one of the things I always say is become the person that you'd admire is because I had a very specific moment just driving in the car, reflecting on a tough conversation I had with one of my board of directors. And I was like, wow, it ended up ending so beautifully that, gosh, I really admire that person. And it was like I was totally disassociated from it. It was like I was observing someone else having that conversation. And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, that was me.
Yeah.
So I have never been more happy with who I am as a person. my kindness, my patience, my dedication, my hard work. So it's like, yeah, 2 years ago I would have said it's the growth. It's the look at we figured out the magic formula. We can do this at scale. We can do this effectively. But now it's like, no, it's about who I am.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of myself, and that feels really cool.
So let's take this a step further. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm kind and I'm always moving forward into a lane, a path, a better person of who I've decided upon. Um, I think one of the greatest superpowers is you being able to control your own happiness and not needing external validation or external circumstances to impact that. Because when you can control your own happiness, you can also control when negative things outside of you happen. And that is something that it's a muscle, takes practice, and my resiliency has grown so much. So I would say, everything is a spectrum. And if I were to describe who I am, none of them are hitting 100 because there's no real such thing.
Yeah.
Even Oprah and Tony Robbins would be like, I could still be a better public speaker. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, you're amazing, right? But there's
Yeah.
always something. And
Yeah.
so for me, I love my kindness or my desire to always lead with kindness. I love that I'm still powerful, though, and that I can be convincing and persuasive while still being kind. I love that I'm not trying to be remembered for just being shocking.
Right.
Which is how a lot of my upbringing was. Just be shocking, stand out, and you'll win 10 points right there. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't need that anymore. There's just this internal confidence. So yeah, that's who I would say that I am.
I love it. So if anyone wants to take a look into Build a Biz Kids or any of the other good work that you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
For sure. So Build a Biz Kids is buildabizkids.com. Best place to get all of the information. Go to our About page. You'll learn how we do what we do and why we do it. And then if you want to learn more about me, follow me on LinkedIn or go to leahcoss.com. I'm the only Leah Coss in the world, so I'm easy to Google.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I will put all those links in the show notes. Leah, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. It's such a wonderful business model. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.